All right, so let's try and pick up where we left off last week, or where at least Alejandro left off. What we did was we wrote a really simple program. What it did was we had a rectangle. Hold on. We had a rectangle, and we gave it some dimensions. I forget what they were. Maybe we had like 6 and 10, and we had to figure out what the area of the rectangle was. We had to write a program that would do that for us. So it was a very simple program, but I think it went through this this process just in a very simple way. So we can talk a little bit about that. So Pranav, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to, I don't know how the Khan Academy class works, but a lot of material online that I've found sort of walks you through the language, right? It tells you, okay, here's how to do an if statement, here's how to do a variable, here's how to, use the language. But to me, programming is a lot more than just the language. It's understanding the programming process that I'm outlining here. It's how to use a programming language for sure. And it's also about understanding something about computers and how they work. So, and throughout the course of this, 5 weeks or however long we go, I'm going to hope to sort of touch on all those things. So right now I want to talk a little bit about this programming process. So the first thing that we did with this problem last week, we had to understand the problem. What are we trying to do? We're trying to compute the area of a rectangle. Pretty straightforward. A lot of times though, when you get into like real world problem, when I program every day, first we spend a lot of time talking about what is the problem, and well, what if this happens? What if that happens? And trying to explore those problems. So it's and we'll get into that some today too. All right. The second step is we had to analyze the problem and design a solution. So we have to make sure that we understand, how do you compute the area of a rectangle? We have to make sure that we know how to do that. Do we have all the information that we need? Did we, we wouldn't be, if we didn't know, say, the length of the side, right, we wouldn't be able to do it. So we have to make sure that we have all the information that we have. And another thing is, so this whole analysis and design step is something that people, there are books on, there are courses on, there's, it's a huge area of study all on its own. So we're only going to touch on, some aspects of it. But certainly one aspect that we need to think about when we have a problem, one thing that we want to be able to do is we want to be able to break down into smaller problems, right? Whatever our problem is, last week's problem was pretty small, so it didn't really need this. But one thing we're definitely doing in this stage is we're breaking down our problem into smaller problems. Smaller problems are easier to understand, they're easier to do. We can split them up among different people if we're working on a team. So one of the techniques for step 2 is break down our problem into smaller problems. Another thing that we're trying to do here is we're also trying to, so this is maybe like one. The second thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to organize our program. Now, so far we haven't really talked about, I haven't given you the tools to organize a program with. We haven't talked about functions, we haven't talked about classes, things that we would use. But eventually, this is something that we're going to want to take a look at. And then a third thing is we want to be able to design our data. So again, with this problem, there wasn't much to it. We decided we wanted one variable called width, another one called height, maybe another one called area, right? But in Java, we have to decide not only on the name, but also on the type. Alejandro, do you remember what type you gave these variables last week? Was it integer? So
yeah, I think it was integer, and I think there was also one named double or something like that.
Right, so the two of the most common, well, some of the most common types, we can just take a quick look at them on our cheat sheet. basic data types over here. So over here in this area. So the four the most common are integers, which are whole numbers, decimals, which are floating point numbers, booleans, which just have two values, true and false, which seems kind of useless, but it's actually very important, and strings, which are, you know, things like names. So those are our four basic data types. Now, so you decided to do integer, which worked. It's fine, right? It was perfectly, you know, good way to do it because we were dealing with whole numbers, right? But, you know, when you're thinking about designing your program, you have to, you know, understand that, oh, well, if I give it integer type, then if the width changes, you know, from 10 to 12, you know, fine, I can just change, you know, the value of my program. But what if it changes, you know, to 10 and a half, right? How am I going to handle that? I'm going to have to change my variables from integer to double, which is going to be a little bit more involved. So, you know, I mean, it was fine for what we did last week, but I'm just saying that these are the kinds of considerations that come up when we're doing this sort of second step. And then finally, we have to build the solution, which hopefully after we've done steps 1 and 2 is not terribly hard. All right, so here's what. So I'm going to give you a little problem, and when I give it to you, we want to like sort of go through this process, right? So or think about it a little bit more carefully. So the problem is this. Oops, I don't know what that. Wow, what just happened? Okay. Okay. Here's the outline of my house, roughly speaking. And so what I want to do is write a program, sort of similar to last week's, that computes the area of my house. All right? So we want to figure out how much space is in here. Okay? So step 1 is understand the problem, right? Do you guys understand the problem?
Yes.
You do? Alejandra?
Yeah.
Okay. So somewhere along step 1 or maybe step 2, we have to make sure that we have enough information to write the program, to solve the problem. Do we have enough information?
No.
No. What do we need?
We need the lengths of the sides.
Yes. Yes, we do. You agree, Alejandra?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So good. So here is, let's see, I think this is going to be, these are all in feet, and they're all whole numbers. So it's 20 feet there, 14 feet there. This back wall is 59 feet. This is also 20 feet. This is 40 feet. And this is 12. And that's really enough information, but I'll also tell you that this is 32. Okay, so now do we have enough information?
Yes.
All right, yeah, I think so. So now we need to do some analysis and design. I don't know what that, if I could spell analysis would help, probably. Analysis and design. Okay, so in this step, we're talking about how to deal with this problem. How we want to translate. So we sort of know what we want to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know what we want to do, and this step has to take us down to how we're going to do it. Okay, so we know what we want to do, but now we have to figure out how. So how do you think we tackle a problem like this? If you were going to start programming this, what would you do? Or what, you know, how would you approach it?
You would have to know how to actually calculate the area.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I don't know if you guys have taken geometry class or not, but like there are formulas for area of a circle, or a triangle, rectangle. I don't know, probably like trapezoid. Anyway, so you got all these sort of formulas that you can memorize. This is like pi r squared, right? Anyway, but is there a formula for a shape like this?
Well,
What do you think? What do you think, Alejandra?
Well, we can break it down, but just for it to shape itself, there's no formula.
Yes, yes, you got it on the ding, 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 ding. You win the prize, right? So we got to break it down. So how would we break it down?
We can turn them into rectangles.
Right, exactly. We can turn it into, how many rectangles do you think we wind up with?
3.
Yeah, right, right. Gonna put a line here and put a line here. And so we wind up with triangle 1, rectangle 1, rectangle 2, and rectangle 3. Okay? All right. So given that much information, you guys can go ahead and write the program to compute that. Okay, so what we're doing as far as writing code, Pranav, is we're using this site called Repl IT, which is over here. So if you go to this website, repl.it, and when you do that, it'll ask you to make an account. You don't have to make an account though. You can just let's see here. I can walk you through this. So you come to this page, Pranav, and then you say start coding, and it'll ask you for what language you want to use, and of course we want to do Java, and then create REPL, and it starts up. And here's a very simple program for you. And if you hit the run button up here, it'll compile it and run it, and you'll see the output over here in the console.
Okay. Should I do that now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me know if you have any questions or get stuck on anything. I'll give you a few minutes.
Okay. I'm on that page.
Okay. Oh. So now we want to write the program that figures out the area of my house. So here's my house. Sort of. My house doesn't exactly look like this. But kind of. Anybody stuck? So, and if you do get stuck, so do you guys have access to the cheat sheet? It's over, talking about this document here. Oh, you guys should, hmm. Here, let me put a link to it in the Zoom chat. I can do that. Somehow. Hmm. All right, so if you open up your chat window, I've pasted a link to the Java cheat sheet there. Coach K, are you still there?
Yes, Coach Green. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. They have links to the classroom page?
Yes, yeah, the Google Classroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have invited them. I have invited Shilpa and I've sent the invite link. And these
Okay.
links also I posted in the Google Classroom.
So I can put a link to the classroom in here.
Uh-huh. I think Cameron, camp counselor, he created it and he already put it in classwork and materials tab.
Right. Okay. Yes, I did see there was some stuff there, so that's
So
good
you
too.
saw that. Okay.
Yeah. So this is another link in the chat that you wanna that you should bookmark and keep access to. It's basically a place where we can share materials with each other, and you know, we'll see how we use it as we go along. But for example, it has a link to the cheat sheet in there.
And Pranav and Alhandra, I have sent the invite link to your parents' email address, but if you have a personal email address that you prefer using so you can directly log in, you can get the notifications, feel free to email me so I can send another invite too, okay? Or Coach Ken should be able to send an invite, so either way it works.
Okay. Oh, wait, so Coach Ken?
Yeah.
So do you want us to like, so how exactly do you want us to actually code it? Like, do you want us to display the number like on the right or?
Yeah. So the way you do that is, as soon as I find the cheat sheet again. Nope, that's not it. Here we go. Okay. Yeah. So the way that we print stuff out to the console is something like this right here. Oops. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay.
It- So instead of a string, you could put like if you had a variable called area, you could do that. Or if you wanted to put out height times width, you could say something like that.
Oh, wait, wait, JavaScript is different from Java, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh. Oh,
Are
the
you
thing
taking
I
it in
learned
Java?
in Khan Academy was actually JavaScript.
I'm sorry, I should have double checked on that because people make that mistake all the time.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, actually, there's
interesting.
something that's different.
Okay, so, all right. All right, well, let's, Alejandro, how are you making out?
Took me a while to figure out what I have to do, but I just got it.
Okay, good. So, did you run it?
Hmm?
Did you run it? Did you run your program? Or are you
Yeah,
you're still writing the program?
I'm still writing the program.
Okay, all right. So I'm thinking we'll let you finish up and then we'll sort of walk through it, and Pranav will quickly get up to speed on what we're doing here. They're very similar languages, Pranav. They're, and the stuff that we've talked about so far, we really haven't gotten into the differences very much, except for the variables. But in JavaScript is kind of like Python in that you can just, where's my purple? So, let me go to this one instead. Okay, so with Python or JavaScript, if you want to make a variable called height, you can just say that. You can just say like height equals 12 or whatever, right? And you're done, something like that. If you want to be, is that how you would declare a variable in JavaScript, or would you do it another? There are other ways to do it too.
I I think you would actually do like var height.
Yeah, right,
into
right.
something.
Okay, yeah. So you would say something like that. So so what you're doing here is you're creating a variable, right? This says I'm creating a variable, and then this says I'm naming my variable height, and then this says I'm giving it a starting value of 12, right?
Okay.
So with Java, it's almost like that, except the only thing is in Java, variables have to have a name like height, but they also have to have a type. So you also have to say what kind of value you're going to put into it. And the available types, again, if you go back to the cheat sheet, available types are listed. These are the common types over here. Okay? So in this case, we're really dealing just with integers. A double would have a floating point, Boolean variables, and string variables. So in our case over here, where we're trying to do this particular program, instead of going like var height equals 12, we might say something like int height equals 12. Okay, and then we can print that value out by doing this. Okay, so we haven't talked about the sort of outer stuff. This is just some gobbledygook that we'll get into hopefully later in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
But what's running, what runs in our program is the stuff in between these two. These are called curly braces. Between this curly brace and that curly brace, this stuff is what runs. This first line says that we're going to print a line called, and it's going to say hello world. Should be a comma there. And then this line, of course, does nothing because it's blank. And then this line declares an integer variable called height and assigns it the value 12. And then line 6 prints out the value of this variable, height. If we run it, see it takes a little bit for it to compile the program, so that'll just sit there and wait. And then eventually it runs it. And it does what we thought it was going to do, print out hello world and then the value of the variable.
I see. Okay.
If statements look exactly like JavaScript, just if, some sort of condition, if height greater than 10, and then curly braces. And then we could say something like, do system.out.print, How you doing, Alejandro?
I finished.
Oh, good. Want to share your screen and show us?
Well, I'm doing the Zoom meeting on a separate device.
Oh. Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let me quick do it. Let's see what I've got over here. You're right. I should have anticipated that since that's what I suggested people do. So, what's going on here? Oh, all right. So let me just quick take all this stuff out and make a file called io.text and paste it there. All right. All right. So we got like we might do something like this. Tell me if you did something very different, Alejandro. So we might say like integer with 1 gets what's with 20, and integer height 1 gets, or let me do this. Let me just do it this way. No, I'll do it this way. Okay. All right. So we got this first rectangle. Rectangle 1 is 20 by 40, right?
Mm-hmm.
20 across by 40 wide, or whatever. So we're just gonna come over to here. I'm just gonna say 20, one's 20, the other one's 40. And so area of the first rectangle is gonna be width 1 times HEIGHT1. Okay. And then we could do similar things for the other two. We could have a width 2 and a height 2. But to save a little bit of time, let's just have area 2 is equal to so the second area, you have to do a little bit of math to figure out. So like this wall here is 32, this one's 20. So what's this dimension? I'm sorry, I said the wrong thing. This wall is 32, this wall is 12, so how big is this wall right here?
Wait, which one?
This one.
It would be 20.
Right. So that's 20. And what's this width here? Right. This one's 20 and 14. So those two are 34. So how big is this?
25?
Yep, that's right. So that's 25. So our second rectangle is 20 times 25. So we can say, it's the wrong. Oh yeah, I know. Sorry. Any windows. All right, so this is, what did I say, 20 times 25. And then area 3 is equal to, so this one is what? What are the dimensions of rectangle 3?
32 and 14.
Right. So 2 times 14. And we'll fix this mistake. All right. So those are our 3 areas, and now we can put out our, print our total. Which is going to be area 1 plus area 2 plus area 3. Right. So we can run that, and 1748. Is that more or less what your program was like, Alejandro?
I did what you did in the first part, like what you figured out, how you figured out the first rectangle 3 times, and
Right. Right. So we have like 3 full sets of variables instead of taking my shortcut that I did. Right.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad you did it that way. All right. All right. So the main point of that exercise was to take a problem and break it down. So which we did, and that's great. Okay. And also we learn a little bit too, and we get everybody up to speed. So those are good things. Okay. So we're going to do another problem now. And this problem is we're going to have a rectangle. I'm not going to draw it because then you'll think you know what the answer is. All right. So we're going to have a rectangle. It could look like this, or it could look like that. Okay. And we want our program to say either wide or, well, this one's pretty square. So let's take this one away. Oh, yeah. Okay, so we want our program to either say wide or narrow. Okay, so again, step 1, understand the problem. Do you think you understand the problem?
Wait, so basically, so we want the program to like recognize the shape.
Well, we're gonna give it the dimensions, right? So we'll say like, here's your height and here's your width. Now tell me if it's a narrow triangle, a narrow rectangle, or a wide rectangle.
Okay.
Do you think you understand the problem, Alejandra?
I think so.
Okay, good. All right. So then the next thing is analysis and design. So here we want to think of, about, you know, how, again, translate this from what into how. And so the problem is, if you start, do you think that you know how to translate this into a how? And Pranav, maybe, but because I don't know what you've learned, but Alejandra won't know because we haven't talked about. So this problem requires the computer to make a decision. Right? So far, we've talked a lot about how to do math. Right? We've multiplied things, we've added things, we could subtract and divide too without too much difficulty. We've talked a lot about math, but we haven't talked about logic. And so since I haven't given you the tools, this problem calls for the computer to make a decision, right? It's got to look at something and decide, oh, well, this is narrow or this is wide. And we haven't talked about how to do that. So let's talk about how to do that for a minute. All right. So logic comes in with these Boolean variables, right? Again, Boolean values, there's 2 values. There's just true and false. That's all you get. It's either true or it's false. We also want to think a little bit about Boolean expressions. So we can say that, you know, 10 double equal signed 10. That means it's equal. This operator means is it less than or equal, greater than or equal, not equal. So for example, 3 plus 2, you know, is 3 plus 2 less than 10? Yes, because 3 plus 2 is 5, and 5 is less than 10. Okay, you can also do double equal with strings, but it's a little bit trickier. So anyway, all right, so we have some Boolean operators that allow us to create Boolean expressions, and what are we going to do with those? All right. So in this part of the cheat sheet, we talk about flow control or decision making. 2 phrases that mean sort of the same thing as far as computers go. All right. So normally in a program, you execute one instruction after another, right? So we come over here. Sorry. Maybe it's not gonna come with this one. All right. So we have like line 3, and then we're gonna execute line 4, which has got nothing on it. Then we're gonna execute line 5, then line 6, and so on, right? So, but we have 2 tools that allow us to change where we execute. And one is the if statement, and another is the while statement. And just so two flow control statements are if and while. Here's if statements, and over here in this part of the cheat sheet, we talk about while statements. So let's talk about if statements. An if statement looks like this. It says if, and then left parenthesis, and right parenthesis, and in between the parentheses is some sort of Boolean expression. So like here, we're checking to see if the value of this variable called height is it greater than 10. If it is greater than 10, if this expression evaluates to true, we do whatever's inside the curly braces, right? And right now we just have one statement, but we could have 2 or 10 or 20 or 100, however many statements are within these, whatever statements are within the curly braces executed if this is true. What do you think happens if it's not true?
Nothing.
Well, yeah, right. It skips over everything that's in the curly braces and goes down to whatever's after the curly braces. So if we had another line called, let's say something like here. Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know how that happened. All right. So all right. So if this expression isn't true, then we skip over everything that's in the curly braces and we go down. So if it is true, we're going to execute line 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 doesn't really do anything, and then 16. Yeah. If it's false, we're just going to skip over all these lines and just go right away down to line 16. Does that make sense? The other thing that we can do is we can have else. We can say else. Let's say true. And I'll change these to false. All right. So if height is greater than 10, we're going to execute everything that's inside these curly braces, and we're going to skip over the else clause and come down here to line 20 now. If it's false, then we're going to skip over the true block and come down here to the false block, else block, and execute these statements. Okay. So this particular program, if we ran it, what would it do?
It would show true.
Right. It would print out true a bunch of times, and then it would print out, let's say done over here. And then it would print out done. All right. So we can prove that to you by running it. So it's got true, 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 and then done. And if we change height to 3, now it's now what is this gonna do?
Say false.
Right. So now it's gonna say false because now height is not greater than 10. It's false. So it executes what's over here. All right. And so that's the if statement. And then there's also the while statement. So all right. So what would this part of the program do the way that it's written right now? So what'll happen is height is set to 3, right? We do whatever the if statement does, which in this case, the way that it's written, it's going to print out false 3 times. And it's going to line 20 and print out done. And it comes to this while. While is exactly the same as if, except for a couple things. So there's no else clause with a while. Okay. But, and then the other thing that's different about it is once it's done what's inside the block, it doesn't just go on to the next line. Okay. Once it's printed out line 33, once it's done line 23, it does, an if statement would go down to line 25. Pointing out my screen. But with the while statement, it doesn't. It goes back to line 22 and checks whether or not height's less than 10 again. And so it will just keep going around and around and around and around and around this loop until finally this becomes false, and then it will finally come down to line 25. So what do you think this statement here will do? What if I ran this program right now, what would it do? How many times would it print out line? How many times would it run line 23? All right. So when it comes down the first time, is height less than 10? Yes, right?
Yes.
Okay. So height is less than 10, so it runs line 23. It comes back to line 22. Is height still less than 10?
Yes.
So it's going to do line 23 again. In fact, nothing in this loop ever changes the value of height. And so it's a little bit of a trick question. It's going to go around this forever. It's called the infinite loop because height is never going to change. So usually when you're in a loop, you need something that's going to change your expression up there. So we can say height is height plus 1. Okay. So now each time we go through the loop, height is going to get incremented by 1. So it's going to start off at 3. It's going to go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then it's finally going to quit loop and come down here and print 10 again. So we can see that by running this. Okay. So it runs 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, it doesn't do 10 because 10 is not less than 10. So once height gets to 10, it quits and comes down here to line 26 and it's done. All right. So any questions? All right. So let's come back to our problem. And we want to write this program that says either narrow or wide. All right. So any idea how you would do this now? Yeah, for now.
Um, if like if width is greater than uh if width is greater than height, say like print wide, and if
Right.
height is greater than width, print narrow.
Right. Very good. Okay. All right. So Yep, that's it. So you want to go ahead and try it?
Oh, sure.
All right. Alejandro, you agree? Okay. How's it going?
Pretty good. I'm nearly done.
All right. Feel like you got it?
I think so. It's saying that there are 2 errors in my
Okay.
program.
Can you share your screen?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I think I have to stop sharing here, so
Uh,
you go ahead. So, yeah. So let's take a look at. Trying to figure out the best way to show this. All right, so that your if and else, you need curly braces instead of just the semicolon, right? So, not that semicolon. That semicolon's fine. Let's go to line 7.
Okay.
To line 7. So you're ending line 7 with a semicolon, but it needs to end with an open curly brace.
So instead of the semicolon, just this?
Line 7, not line 8.
Oh.
So you should have and you just want the open curly brace. You don't want the closed one yet.
Oh.
You can use the delete key.
Okay.
Not the backspace key, the delete key.
Oh, I see.
Oh, there you go. Okay. You need to put the semicolon back on line 8 at the end. No, semicolon.
Oh, semicolon.
Okay. All right. So again, so the if statement executes everything from the open curly brace down to the closing curly brace. You need to put a closing curly brace before the else on line 10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so that gives you the if block. Now you need to create the else block. So you need a curly brace again after else. Right. Get rid of that. Yeah, there you go. Now, like on line 12, the closing curly brace.
Okay.
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 Yeah.
So now.
Okay, good. Okay. So the problem there is on line 11, you have the trailing. You don't have the closed quote. You have the open quote, not the closed quote.
Here.
On line 11, yeah. See how you have quote, WIDE,
Oh, I see.
and no close quote. There you go.
Okay, so now it should.
There you go.
All right. Thanks.
Okay. Alejandra, how you doing?
For me, it worked.
Great. Perfect. All right, good. So let me share my screen again. All right, so 7 o'clock, so we're gonna wrap this up. But let me give you guys both think you're gonna be back next week? I hope so.
Lovely.
'Cause I only got 2 people.
Yeah, and we want you to get the maximum benefit out of this. So feel free to make it interactive and tell what exactly you want, so we can cater towards that. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If I'm not giving you what you need or what what's interesting to you, then definitely let me know. Here's what I would like to ask you to do between now and next Wednesday. One is I'd like you to think about what kind of program. I would like us to do some sort of like larger project. I don't want to just run through every week with a few examples like these, okay, here's how to write a, here's how to do this, here's how to do that, and at the end of it, you wind up like, you've learned a lot, hopefully, but you haven't like gotten any, anything good. So what my idea is that we should have some sort of project that we work towards, right? Some sort of larger program that we're doing. And like I said earlier, it could be like working with this robot here, so driving that with Java, or it could be some sort of program that you want to do. And again, the idea that I came up with was this pen pal list, and maybe that's okay with you, and you can think about, well, what kind of features do we need to do? Do we need to support email, or do we want to have a picture, or do we want to randomly select? I don't know, just like without thinking about how to build it, just think about what you would like to build. Or if that doesn't interest you, if you want to do something else, like something that's more graphics or something like that, like draw something with Java, you know, I don't know exactly how to do that, but anyway, if we can figure that out. So just think about what you would like to do. The other thing, so that's one thing I'd like you to do. The other thing is that I want, if you have time and interest, so something that we didn't talk about today was how to do input. So we've done this output stuff, right, where we do a print line, you know, and we show people how to, you know, we can print stuff out to the console. Right? But we also want our programs to be able to take input too. So I describe over here how to read input from the console. So for example, over here, we have these two lines. We say system.console.readline. And the way that this works, I'll just show you real quick. Yeah, just do this real quick. So what happens here is the system will just sit there waiting, because when it hits this line of code, the system will, it doesn't, you know, we actually should probably put something like, you know, please give me your name. So let's do it this way. System.out print line. You know, what is your name? And instead of, and then it will sit there waiting. And finally, when you type something in and hit enter, then it will read that in and it will put it into this variable that you put over here. And now you have a variable. So you can just, you can run this and turns out that there's no Z in the word system. So my name is Ken, and then it tells me, and then it prints back out your name is Ken. Okay, so that's more or less how we do input in Java. And on the cheat sheet, I give a few more examples. So everything that comes in when you read it, and it comes in as a string. And so if you wanted to read in a number, you would have to convert it into a number. So here's how you convert. So here's a string, and it shows you how to convert a string into a number, into an integer, into a whole number. And here's an example of converting a string into a floating point number. And so here's a little example. What's the temperature? It reads the temperature, then it checks is the temperature greater than 90. In order to do that, it has to convert the string into an integer. Does the comparison, it's not either it's too hot or whatever. Okay, so we have this example right here. And so what I think would be a fun exercise, hopefully, would be to write a program that just echoes everything you type in. So you type in Fred, and it just spits it right back out to you and waits for the next line. And then you type something else, and it you just type something in, and it just echoes it right back out to you. And then maybe like when you type the word exit or something like that, then it decides to finally quit, or you can just kill it. So I think that'd be good exercise, and that will help set us up for what I want to cover next week.